an introduction to Multisim Live for AC circuits. In AC circuits, we will use Multisim Live as an online circuit simulation tool. This will allow us to interact with simulated circuits wherever we have internet access. Multisim Live works in a browser, in a web browser, and it works on mobile and desktop. So the intent in this video is to show you how to get to Multisim Live, how to create an account, which you'll need to do to use Multisim Live, and then how to create a simple circuit for AC circuits. I'm going to kind of keep it in the context of AC circuits. You may be using Multisim Live and other classes, so we'll look at just what we need for AC circuits here. So Multisim Live works in a browser, so open up your favorite browser on your mobile phone or desktop and visit multisim.com. So once you go to multisim.com, you'll be greeted with this page or a similar rendering of it. If you haven't signed up for a Multisim account yet, you'll want to click the sign up button. All right, you'll come to the user account creation page. Here you're going to pick an alias. This is, think of this like a gamer tag or a handle. Just pick something that you like that's recognizable and unique. So they're going to check to make sure it's unique. First name, last name, and then you're going to need to enter your role. Select student. That will change the form. And then enter your school. They want your graduation date and year. You can pick something 2 years out. That's not really important. Graduation for you is important, but for what they need to know, just pick a date in the future. Yeah, I recommend using your school email address here. National Instruments will send you emails. You can unsubscribe from them, but I will warn you, they will send you emails. So put your school email address in here and then select a password and click create account. I know I've recommended using your school email address. You're going to need to validate your account, so make sure it's an active email address. If you've got a burner email address that you like to use for things like this, go ahead and use it, but just make sure it's one that you can access because you will need to validate your account and you'll want to use that email address for password resets and things like that. All right, I have an account, so I'm going to go back up and just log in. Wait for the page to render there. So this is what the login screen looks like. I'll click login. I don't know why they have this second page, but I'm continually greeted by a second password entry. Okay, here we are at my user dashboard. Once you create an account, you'll be brought here. You'll see there's a place for a profile picture. You can see my handle here, name and role. You can actually go up if you want to add a profile picture. You can go to your profile settings. I'm not going to visit that. You can also click edit profile. I'm not going to visit that right now because I want to dive right into circuits. Underneath your profile, you'll get a list of your latest circuits. And it's just showing 3. I've got a total of 6 circuits here. It's just showing 3 of them. You can view all of them. So this is kind of nice because you can revisit work that you've been doing recently. For starters, if you're creating an account, you're going to create your first circuit. You won't see any latest circuits here, so you can click at the top right, and you can do this anytime. Click Create Circuit. This will bring you to the Multisim Live environment. Takes a moment to load. So here we're greeted by the Multisim Live environment. You've got in the middle this big workspace. This is where your schematic will go. And I'll just kind of go over all the features on the top. So at the top, you've got the file navigation menu. So this is sort of like a file menu on your computer. New file, save, save as. I will note this export section is very useful. You can export an image or schematic that you've created. Moving across the top bar, you can see it starts out with an untitled circuit. I'm going to change that to demo circuit 1. Hit enter, and it's actually changed the name. Note that this is unsaved. I can go ahead and save this. And when I save it, it's asking me for visibility. All of our circuits are going to be public because we're using free accounts. Here you have the option to change the name and add a description. So I'll add that. You can add a tag. And it's saved. And note that the asterisk goes away when it's saved. So an asterisk means it's not saved. All right, moving across the top bar, you've got this stream to, which I have not used. You've got an export, and you've got this full screen option. I'm going to go ahead and full screen this because you guys don't need to see this top toolbar here. And now we're full screen. You've also got help. You can get access to help here. And then moving across the bottom, we've got this information, file information tab. This is where you can go in and actually change the description. There's more information here. There's not really much there that we need to focus on. You've got a play and a stop button. This actually runs the simulation. So we'll build circuits in this environment using parts, and they'll show up as schematic symbols. Once we have everything connected, we can actually run a simulation and probe voltages. This is where you'd want to run and stop that simulation. Where you see interactive, that is the type of simulation that you're going to run. For most of your circuits, you're going to want to use interactive. AC sweep is also useful, and I'll visit that in a later demo. Moving across this row, we've got schematic. That's where we're at now. You can change the view. You can switch over to the grapher. So this is a simple oscilloscope. We'll demo this momentarily. And then you can also view the schematic along with the oscilloscope view. I'm going to bounce back to the schematic. The schematic in Workspace is zoomable. So I'm just kind of scrolling in and out. You can zoom this as needed. You've also got zoom controls over here on the right, and you can rotate parts with these as well. All right, so let's look at the parts bin. I want to start by pointing out that if you get lost or can't remember where something is, there is a search here. So if I want to find a resistor, I just type in resistor and it pulls up some results. If I wanted an inductor, I just type it in there. For our circuits, it's pretty simple to find the components we need. In AC circuits, we're going to focus on underneath the search, these top 4 parts bins. So I'll just move through those quickly. This little V, that's a voltage probe. So here's where you're going to find the types of probes that you can place on your circuit. And what these are for is actually, these are our measurements. This is how we collect measurements from a simulated circuit. So we'll mostly use voltage and current. Moving down, we've got schematic connectors. This is important because you're always going to need to ground your circuits in Multisim. All simulated circuits need a ground reference. So we're going to need to put those on every circuit. So remember that. Sources. For AC circuits, we're always going to use this AC voltage source. But you can see if you're possibly in other classes, you can have mixed circuits where you've got DC and AC. For example, if you're simulating a transistor circuit, you might have an AC source and a DC source. So something to remember for other classes if you're using it there. Moving down the parts bin to our last section that we'll use in AC circuits, that's the passive parts bin. Here you will find resistors, capacitors, inductors, and more. The primary components we're going to use are resistors, capacitors, and inductors. All right, so that covers all the various components of the workspace. What I want to do now is just quickly build the circuit. So I'm going to start with a voltage source. We're going to use an AC voltage source. Note that it's pre-populated with values 1 volt peak and 1 kilohertz frequency. I can double click this item and it pulls up a panel where I can change more of this. So you can see here the model under the model section. We've got VA, this is V voltage peak, and we've got the frequency. You can add an offset if you'd like, and you can phase shift this if you need, but we are pretty much going to leave it as is. You can change these values on the right panel, and you can also change them just by clicking on the parameters on the source. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 10 kilohertz and just show you how you can do that. Multisim uses a simplified engineering prefix where you've got K for kilo, M for milli, U, the letter U for micro, instead of the mu that we were used to. So I'm going to go ahead and put 10 kilohertz as the frequency here. All right. Next, I'm going to pull out a resistor. Let's put a resistor down here. Note that it's pre-populated with 1 kilo. You'll want to change this depending on the circuit that you're building. I'm going to build an RL circuit, so I'm going to pull an inductor out here. Again, that came from the, I did that quickly, sorry. This came from the passive bin. And note that it's pre-populated with a value. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 1 millihenry. Hang on. Notice that it said, I just pulled myself out of full screen. Notice that it actually has 1 mu here. If you wanted to enter that, you don't have to enter the Greek letter mu, you can enter u. I'm going to change this to 1 millihenry and leave it at that. All right, next, and I'm going to dismiss this gear icon really quickly. Let me show you this on the right. We can click the configuration pane to get back into our full screen sort of view of our workspace. We need to connect all the wires. And actually, I told you we need to ground this circuit, so I'm going to go ahead and pull a ground out first. So I'll go to the schematic connectors bin, pull out a ground, and place that where the ground reference would be for your circuit. All right, all of our parts are down. So I'm going to connect some wires. Let me zoom in here really quickly so you can see this. When you hover near a terminal, you get the little spool. It's like think of it like a wire spool. Click on that terminal, come up, and I've goofed up my wire here. I can show you how to fix that really quickly, and then go to another terminal and make the connection. I'm going to bounce around the circuit and just go ahead and make all these connections really quickly so we can speed this up. All right. Note that my wires look kind of goofy. I'm going to go ahead and fix that real quick. You can click and drag on segments of wires to reposition them the way you want them. And another thing I don't like about the wires, when you put these wires down, is you get these little net symbols here. I'm going to double click on a wire and show you how you can get rid of that. It pulls up the configuration pane over here. Go to display and you can remove that net label. All right. I'll dismiss the configuration pane and get us back to full screen. Okay, so we have a full circuit here, source, resistor, inductor, and ground with wires connecting all parts. This is a complete circuit. If you have a, if you make if you miss a connection, your simulation will give you errors. So if you get errors, just go back here and make sure that everything is connected properly. Once you have everything connected, you can actually run a simulation. So I can go up to the play button, run the simulation, and it's going to take a second, and there's the simulation. It's kicked in. And you can see that it shows this timer. This is how long the simulation has been running. There's not much useful to see here. I can't even go to the grapher because I haven't placed a probe down. So let's do that. I'm going to stop the simulation. And I'm going to go to the probe bin and pull out a couple of voltage probes. Voltage probes are the most common probes we're going to use. So let's say we want to see the voltage across this inductor. I'll place this voltage probe here. And I'm going to go ahead and relabel this VL. So I'm double clicked on that, pulled up the configuration pane, and I've changed the ID. You notice that it's now VL. Now I want to go ahead and stop and say something here. When we're doing labs, what we would do is put an oscilloscope probe here. So we would put the probe on this side of the inductor, the high side of the inductor, and we would connect a ground clipped over to ground. In Multisim Live, all voltage probes and all current probes are referenced to ground. So we don't have to do that two-point connection to get a probe. We just put a probe down wherever we want. But keep in mind that that voltage is referenced to ground. So I've got the inductor voltage probe there. Let me go ahead and get a probe here to show the source voltage. Again, I'm going to change the ID to something meaningful. And now you can see at this point in time in our circuit, you've got the voltages for those two probes visible right here in the schematic view. This is super useful for DC circuits or circuits like you'll see in AC where you have some DC values. You get a snapshot of what that voltage is right there and then. For AC circuits, we're going to actually need to run the simulation and go to the grapher to look at what these voltages really are. As we know, our voltage is changing, so we need to look at an interval of time there. So in order to do that, run the simulation. And we can see in our schematic view that these voltages are now changing. That's nice. I mean, we get a live view there, but that's not really useful. We want to see it. We need to see it on an oscilloscope view. So go to the grapher. And there you can see our voltages are changing. We can see them in a similar view, or a view that is similar to the oscilloscope. I recommend once you have this to go ahead and stop the simulation. All right, the simulation stopped, and we still have the plot of our voltages here. This is all we need to do our measurements. So I'm going to pull up, so we're in the grapher view. I'm going to pull up the gear and just show you really quickly how we can zoom. Hopefully we're going to actually get that zoom all is going to zoom everything. Let's click on voltage and see if we get a zoom value here. Maybe not. So here's what you can do. You can zoom using either one of these axes. It looks like our vertical zoom is good, and you can see when I'm hovering over here that I get a scroll. There we go. And so I've actually scrolled up and down the vertical. I'm going to go over here on the configuration pane and actually just adjust that. Minimum voltage, I'm going to put -1. Maximum voltage, 1 volt. see how that works. So that's actually -1 to 1 volts. So I get the full view. The time you can zoom as well. Let's see if I can zoom this out, or in rather, depending on how you think about it. And that's just a side scroll on your trackpad or with your scroller. This is admittedly touchy, y'all, so I'm going to go ahead and put in, I want to show 0.001, yeah, 0.1 seconds. See what that looks like. There we go. Let's put down 0.1 millisecond. There we go. We get a nice view here, and we can see this is a 10 kilohertz 10 kilohertz sine waves are source, so that's what we're seeing here. Here's our source voltage, that's the blue, and you can see we've got a legend here. No, the source voltage is actually the, blue. And that's on a legend. We can actually look at that legend and see which is which. The green is the inductor voltage. So we can see that there. So this is, how we can go ahead and do it. I'm just trying to quickly demo this and just show you what you can get from a schematic. I'm going to dive down in future demos on how to use cursors, how to, tweak the view. I recommend tweaking the view using your knowledge of frequency to show minimum and maximum time. And instead of trying to scroll, in my experience, scrolling and zooming using scroll is very touchy. And sometimes it just produces unexpected results. So I recommend actually entering the ranges over here in the configuration pane. So let me back out of this, and I'll show you the split view. And so here we can see we've got a simple RL circuit with an oscilloscope view that we can do measurements on. And I'll dive back in a future demo and show you how we do cursor measurements so that we can determine phase shifts and things like that. For now, I want to make sure this demo circuit is saved because I'm going to back out of this. So demo circuit 1 has this asterisk above it. It is not saved, so I want to make sure that is saved. So I'm going to save it. All right, so that circuit is saved. And now I want to go back to my circuits. Maybe I want to work on another circuit. In this case, I really want to just go and show you that that circuit is there. So we'll go to My Circuits. And you can see that this demo circuit 1 is the top circuit in My Circuits. So that's all for now. I'll put another video together and show you some more advanced features. Hopefully this helps you see how you can use Multisim Live to simulate circuits quickly and easily so that we can explore the theory that we're studying in our course.